is here from the A-Team, and welcome to the Wolf Pack.
When I started using Cakewalk, some of my first plugins were MonsterDAW because of how intuitive they are. I was kinda shy about my plugins since I had no idea how many free options I'd have, or whether they'd be any good, or if they'd give me a virus. Nowadays, I've found a somewhat consistent setup of plugins with some experimentation every now and again, but I'd like to turn to MonsterDAW for another creation. So in this video, I'll be using exclusively MonsterDAW. I made a demo called Monster a while back, and I think it's time I flesh it out as a character theme song for this guy. Small caveat, I will allow myself to use different effect plugins since MonsterDAW doesn't make any, but any instruments must come from MonsterDAW. Now let's comment how many times you think I can say monster and begin. The first thing I did was fix the reverb. I'd put it on the master, which makes it more muted and prevents it from fleshing out your instruments. You want to set the reverb individually, and also not keep the delay at 300 milliseconds. I also turned off the MonsterDAW reverb and reset the cutoff so I'd have a clean slate going into the amps. One thing I've learned is that volume comes first in mixing. Once you decide how loud each instrument plays, you're already 90% done. But since I was working with a pre-made demo, my work was cut out for me. I decided to redo all the amps, and the plugin I'm using is Amp Locker. I've got 3 paid amps to pick from, and for power chords, I'm going with Orail with 3.6 gain, 3.8 bass, 4.4 mids, and 6.2 treble. I generally turn off presence completely. Let me know if that's a good decision. And like I said before, keep your reverb in one place, unless I'm bad and don't know and it does wonders for producers everywhere. To tighten the tone, I put a distortion pedal and set the gain to 0, tweaking the volume along the way to a comfortable level. On the EQ, I brought the highs down and tweaked the dips that were already there. And then I remembered the cabinets exist, so I set it to subway mode and played around with the mic placement. Quick question before we move on, is it a good idea to use 2 cabs? I've tried it before, but it only ever seems to cause auditory mayhem. Finally, I added a compressor to keep the sounds going into the amp consistent. Then it was time for the lead guitar, and this time I just used the default amp Prestige with 3.68 gain, 3.2 bass, 4.48 mids, and 5.92 treble. It was causing a bit of ringing, so I dipped that down on the EQ before using a screamer pedal. Same tactic as before. No drive, level it up to full, and tweak the tone. I'm still experimenting with the cabs, and so far clicking randomly seems to help. Quick criticism for Amp Locker. I appreciate that most cabs are free, but putting the paid ones under the eyeball that shows only ones you own is incredibly scummy because it often confuses me when I think I can use a cab and it hits me with the demo message. I don't want to go too deep into it since I assume it's a mistake, the amps and pedals don't follow suit, but I'd appreciate it if an update or something improved it. I wrapped up the lead with another compressor, and then it was on to the bass. The Monster demo had a guitar amp and cab from TH3, and that just won't do. It completely drowned out the bass frequencies, and has done so for every song that has used this tactic, and it's about time to end it. Amp Locker has bass amps, cabs, and pedals, which I'd never used before, so a lot of my time was just tinkering. I'd add a drive here, tweak some settings there, change a cab, tweak some more settings, turn it off entirely just to feel its impact. It was a lot. I'm still kinda shaky and curious what I can do with Amp Locker's bass stuff, so I'll keep playing around in future songs. With the mixing done, I started building my masterpiece with the demo serving as the hook. Right away, I knew I wanted a small bass melody before the hook, and I complemented it with a monster strings part. I have a love-hate relationship with monster strings since it can be used for some pretty cool things, but it often sounds more like a string adjacent synth than actual strings. You get what you pay for. I'd also been wondering why this guitar choke thing existed, and it was so nice to actually use it for something. Little goof up on my part, the chord mode on Monster Guitar uses this C note for muted playing, while the C I was trying to use is down here, so oops. A little experimentation later, and I got the bright idea to turn off the bass amp during the prelude since it makes the bass more muted. Then the B section, as in ABCA format, uses a lot of different guitar modes which I liked a lot. I've always struggled to utilize them. I didn't even know you could align the bass to the 5th on the guitar chord, but you can. I'll keep that in mind for future songs. For the lead, I took a lot of inspiration from the demo's ending, and I really like the role it plays here, especially when it supports the power chord. That's cool. Speaking of which, I must have either been really inspired or really lazy, because the intermission midway through just builds up to a heavier version of the B section. I'm not certain what the thought process was, but I'll take it. It does sound awesome. That leads us into a C section that slows things down for a bit for some much needed variety. I'd describe this as build up, leap, like the sunlight at the end of the tunnel coming closer, and you see the train burst out on the other side. And on the other side, another version of the intro was just calling me. This time I used the lead to support the bass, trying to use thirds before giving up and making it the same notes for consistency. From there, the last hook built itself, though I did decide to use the strings as a pivotal yet subtle touch, and I changed the closing notes for a nice climax. The last step, mastering, was pretty simple. A 1x2x1 compressor, dipping some harsh frequency slightly, and slapping a just-in-case limiter that would never get used. This is my strategy for most of my songs, and it's worked well so far. So you'd think that's where the story ends, right? Nope! Our last chapter starts with some simple panning. I still don't really have the hang of it, and I wanted to keep practicing with different songs until I gained some consistency. But when I couldn't figure out how to divide the space into 4s and wanted to divide into 5s instead, I got the idea to add 2 basses on opposite sides. This forced me to completely rebalance the volume so they wouldn't overpower the other instruments, but in the end it helped make them stand out more. It also led to this great effect where each bass gets a turn playing its melody. Though I do feel a little bad for the right bass who has to share with the lead while lefty doesn't. And finally, I closed the MonsterDAW challenge by retiring the limiter. Didn't even need it. As for why the song itself is called Monster, partly for the challenge, but also character building. This is a theme song for a character named Luke Josefina. I'll reveal more about his story later, but for now, just know I'm building a playlist that represents him, and there'll be many more songs like it. I'll be doing the same for his twin sister, Sarah Josefina. Her first song, Appeasement, will release sometime next week. Now, what did I learn from only using MonsterDAW plugins? I learned that I picked the wrong plugin lineup for this one. Monster Guitar, Drums, and Strings were my starting plugins. In fact, I still use Monster Drums for every song. I should probably start looking into new drum plugins. It was fun for sure, but it wasn't hard. I didn't learn much. In fact, calling it a challenge is fairly misleading. It was more like a gimmick. I thought I'd spent so much time away from Monster Guitar that it'd be a challenge, but the real challenge was deciphering what was challenging about it. Working with Contact 8 Stratus is more difficult than this. Not to mention, they don't make effect plugins, so the focus was less on MonsterDAW and more on Amp Locker or Valhalla. If I ever do more challenges like this, it'll be something less intuitive than this. Something that actually forces me to get creative, like cakewalk defaults only. It'd be interesting seeing myself apply new knowledge to prehistoric instruments. But I'll get back to you on that once I figure out why they replaced the default effects with paid ones I can't even use.
Thanks for coming to the party! I really like making content like this, so if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Or at least like the video, because it'll magically let me know. Tune in next Saturday for more, or if you want to watch me on demand, just click the picture above me. See you next time! Bye-bye!